Welcome. I hope you're having a great day. This is Jennifer, and today I want to show you how to create personalized cards and envelopes. Now, a couple weeks ago, I showed a stamp set on social media from Concord and Ninth that I think is incredible. It's an alphabet stamp set. I'll be using it today. A lot of people asked me to do a video with it, so I actually decided to kill two birds with one stone and showcase that stamp set and how to use it and create a bunch of birthday cards at once, which I am really needing. So I am making some personalized birthday cards today, and I need to say that they were very inspired by the folks over at Concord and Ninth and an example I saw on their blog. Angie and Greg said that I could share it with you today, so that's what I'm doing, and I'm also going to show you how I stamp envelopes. But let's start with the cards first. For the cards, I'm using two stamp sets, the alphabet set, and then also a set called Happy Words, so I can create this birthday song that's personalized. Now I'm first going to show you how I created the cards with the Misty stamping tool, then I'll show you how to do it without the tool if you don't have it. Now I want to arrange the words onto a piece of scrap plastic that I found from some packaging. And the reason I'm doing this is all of these words in this sentiment set are broken up so you can build different sentiments. I want to build happy birthday to you and make sure it's nice and centered. So I'm doing it on a piece of plastic so that I can transfer it to different places and not have to worry about replacing the sentiments each time. So I took that little piece of plastic with the stamps attached, taped it onto an acrylic block so I can test it out and make sure that I'm happy with the centering and the positioning of all the words. Now I decided to trim down my plastic, and here I have basically a stamp that I can use on an acrylic block or in my Misty. I really wanted the sentiments to all be evenly placed on the card, so I measured things out. That's the engineering training in me. What I have is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note card that I'm doing stamping on. If you want to get the spacing just right like me, I thought I'd share it with you. You could eyeball it if you want to. Now what I did is I put a little mark at 1/3 of an inch from the top and the bottom of the card. This T-ruler is very handy. So now with my T-ruler, I'm just drawing a straight line there. So I have two straight lines, 1/3 of an inch from the top and the bottom of the card. All of our stamping will be between these lines. Next, I'm going to draw a few more tick marks, all 1 inch from that top line. So one there, one there, one there, all 1 inch apart. Then I'm going to draw a line along those. I told you I'm crazy. I like things evenly placed. Again, you can eyeball it, or if you have different stamps, you might have to play around with it a bit. Now the last line I'm going to draw horizontally is 1 inch from the bottom line. What this does is it gives us a nice even line of 1 inch space for our sentiments, and then a small 5/6 of an inch. I know that's crazy. 5/6 of an inch space down there for our personalized stamping. Just wanted to share this with you in case you wanted it just like I did. There's the measurements. You can pause it and screenshot it if you want to. I also want to make sure that my stamping is centered in the center of the card. So I'm just drawing two lines 1 inch from the both sides of the card. So basically we have this column down the center where I'm going to do all of my stamping. This saves me a lot of time because I'm going to make a bunch of these. And by doing this in the beginning, I can be sure that there won't be any frustrations later on. So you can wing it again if that's easier for you. I'm using my Misty stamping tool today because I'm making so many, but again, I'm going to show you how to do this without the Misty later on. So I'm slowing this down so you can really see what I'm doing here. I'm putting my guideline that we just created into the Misty in the corner. Now I have my stamp with some washi tape facing up. The sticky side is facing up. I'm going to position it into that top little frame that we created with our pencil lines. Then I'm going to close the Misty, flip it over, so gravity helps me out here, and then press the tape down. So now it is positioned on the door of my Misty exactly where I need it to stamp. The best part about this is I can stamp this over and over on a bunch of cards, and it'll stamp in the exact correct spot each time. Here I'm putting my guide back in just to make sure that I had it in the right spot, and now I can go ahead and do all of my stamping. So I'm putting some 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white Hero Arts note cards in here. And I am just going to stamp Happy Birthday on the top with various colors of dye ink. You could use absolutely any ink you want here. Now you'll notice that I'm double stamping this. The only reason I am doing that is because I can. With the Misty, you can double stamp very easily. And this allows me to make my inks a little bit darker and even give a better result. And notice I'm not doing pencil lines on all my cards, just that guideline one that I created at the beginning. Now I did stamp a bunch of different colors on white note cards, but I wanted to show you a darker color note card. This is a Hero Arts craft note card, and I'm using the new black shimmer pigment ink from Imagine Crafts. Now this is beautiful. I really like this black. It's black, nice solid black, but it has this kind of silvery shimmer on top that is beautiful. You really only need to stamp it once, and it stamps nice and solid. I used the white shimmer the other day in a video, and I showed it with inking, but I wanted to show you what these look like stamping. I'm going to show you the other colors in a little bit. Okay, so now that I did the first happy birthday to you on all of the cards, it's time to move that down one notch. So I'm doing the exact same thing where I'm positioning it, but one frame lower between those pencil lines that we created. I'm just centering them between the pencil lines we created earlier. So now I can stamp this sentiment the second time. It's evenly spaced down from the first one, and it's centered perfectly thanks to the pencil guideline that we created. Now here I'm using my old gold Delicata ink. This is that Imagine Crafts ink, and I notice here that this really needs re-inking. I think if you get these ink pads, it's probably a good idea to get the re-inker too. You'll see my gold isn't as vivid, so it's time for me to buy a re-inker for that. But the gold is really nice to do like an inked background also, so that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so now that I've done my stamping, my second round of stamping on all of my cards, it's time to move this down one more time. This time we're moving it all the way to the bottom because I'm doing the happy birthday song. So I'm taking it and I'm centering it up in that bottom frame that we created with our pencil lines, flipping it over so that gravity helps me, and then I just press it down, and now I know it'll be positioned exactly the same for all of these. Now you could have just shifted your cardstock in there, but I found this to be so much easier to move the stamp each time. Since I did position these on that little plastic piece of scrap, it's really easy to move the words together and not have to recenter them each time. So I'm stamping the bottom happy birthday to you on all of the cards. On that craft note card, I'm using the white shimmer from Imagine Crafts. Now I will say that this stamps very faint in this example. However, I have used it for inking techniques in another video, which I'll link to here, and it was beautiful. And it's great for very subtle backgrounds, but for this card where you need it to be a little more prominent, it was a little too soft, and that's just something to keep in mind, but I will use those inks in other videos. They're wonderful and they dry fast. Okay, so now let's move on. We got our song going here. We have Happy Birthday to You at the top twice and on the bottom. Now we need to do Happy Birthday Dear. So I'm leaving happy on my little plastic piece here, and I'm adding birthday dear onto there, and then we'll do the personalized name underneath that. So once I have that position just right, I can put in my MISTI in that little frame, the third frame down, and go ahead and position it just exactly where it needs to be. And now I can do my stamping in all of them. Now again, I did a variety of dye inks, but this is an opportunity to try out different inks that you have. Maybe you can use ombre inks or some of your metallic inks. You can do whatever you want for this. I am mass producing a ton of them in happy colors so that I have them ready to go when I need birthday cards, which I seem to never make enough of. Now for that craft note card, this time I'm testing out the Imagine Crafts copper color, and this is stunning. I really like the copper. The black and the copper are probably my favorites. You can see the shine that you get with it. It's perfect for a fall background or like a neutral background. I really like that one a lot. It looks nice on white cardstock too. Okay, so we have all of our stamping done except for the personalization. Before I move on to that, I did want to show you quickly how you can create these cards without the MISTI. In this case, I'm going to position the words just where I want it onto an acrylic block. You can mount them directly on the block if you want to. And I'm going to do the same pencil lines I created earlier, the same spacing. But this time, I am just going to eyeball it by looking right down through the stamp and stamping each time into those frames. It really does work. It takes a little bit more time, but it's definitely worth the effort to have the personalized card. Okay, so now it's time for the personalization. I love that this is the happy birthday song, and we can add the person's name to it. Now the stamp set that I'm using is new from Concord and Ninth, and it's called Perfectly Penned. This stamp set is fantastic. I am so excited about it. It is 6x8, and it has the calligraphy and the block lettering, along with things that you can stamp on an envelope to make it even more fun. After all, we spend so much time on the card, we might as well spend time on the envelope too. Concord and Ninth spent a lot of time figuring this out, and I wanted to make a note about the R's. There are two lowercase r's. One is if the R needs to be at the beginning of the word, like road, but then there's another R if it's in the middle of a word, and that way it connects better. That's something to keep in mind. It says it on the back of the packaging. It just really makes for better results. Okay, so let me give some tips for that calligraphy look that you see there that says Mary Dawn. So to save a lot of time, I take out all the letters I need first, and I put them onto an extra acrylic block so they're ready to go. Now I'm going to time this so you can see it doesn't take that long to do this, because some people said it would take way too long. Now I will say, for this to work, it is best to stamp each letter individually. You can't mount all the letters together or they will not connect. But it doesn't take long. You'll see that in a moment. So I'm taking out all the letters to spell Mary Dawn. Once I have them, I'm going to stamp one at a time with some black ink. Now, I am eyeballing this to get the spacing just right. If you want to, you can stamp it first on practice paper, and then you'll know about what spacing you need to center it up. But I've played with this set a few times, and I kind of have an idea for what the spacing needs to be. Now, here is the trick. Get your head above that stamp, and every time make sure you overlap the stamp. Have the stamp a little bit more to the left than you think it needs to be. That way they line up better. This is a pretty forgiving stamp set that you can overlap quite a bit, and it still looks like you hand drew this. And I do not have a good handwriting, so I am so thankful for this because it looks like I did it myself. Just notice that every time I stamp a letter, I'm overlapping it slightly with the end of the last letter that I stamped. This really makes a big difference, and look how easy it was. It only took me 2 minutes and 15 seconds to put Mary Dawn. That's a lot less time than it would take me to color something with Copic markers. Okay, so now that the personalization is done, I'm just adding some simple stars to the background, and I'm going to also add little dots of confetti with my stylus and my ink, just some tiny little dots. And then I use my Wink of Stella shimmer pen to add some shine to those little stars. Now when I make a one-layer card, I want to do something special to it to kind of give it some oomph. So what I did is I sprayed some shimmer mist over the entire card. This just gives it a subtle shine, a subtle shimmer that catches the light. Now what I did is I actually took all of my cards, laid them out in the bottom of my shower, and then misted that bottle from about 3 feet above to give shine to each of them. So here's one I'm showing you, but all the others I took in my shower and did, and it's a great way to kind of contain that shimmer mist. But I'm telling you, this shimmer mist is one of my favorite things. You can buy a refill, and I use it all the time. Okay, so now with the rest of the cards that I didn't add personalization to, I'm finishing them off so that they're ready to personalize whenever I have a birthday that has come up that I need to send a card for. So I did a handful that I need to send right away, and the rest I'm saving for later. Okay, now here is the last of the shimmer ink pads. This one's the dark brown, and it is beautiful too. So if you like to use dark brown, I highly recommend this dark brown shimmer pad. Now I will say that for this card, I finished it off by doing white heat embossing. I wish that gold was a little more vibrant, but I need to get that re-inker. I promise to do a video soon where I better showcase these wonderful inks. Okay, let me show you all the cards I made. I did some that have an ombre look by going from light to dark inks. Then I did some where I just did a variety of bright colors, fun, happy colors. This is a great time, as I mentioned, to just try out different inks that you've been wanting to use. This one I meant to do rainbow. I was going to personalize with green ink, so the Mary Dawn would be green, but I totally forgot. It would be cool if you did green there, so you have that rainbow effect. I also did some just in other happy colors, and also did several with a masculine kind of color scheme, so I could use it for masculine or feminine cards. So you can see all the cards I have here ready to go. When I have a birthday that I need to send a card out for, I can just go ahead and stamp the name, and it's good to go. I really like having these on hand. You can see I made a bunch, and it didn't take much time at all. So now that I've shown you the cards, it's time to talk about the envelopes and give you some more tips for using those alphabet stamps. So here I'm creating an envelope for my friend Christina Werner. This is her P.O. box, so it's okay for me to share here. Now when I'm stamping on an envelope, one thing I like to do is use the T-ruler as a guide. I think that's very important to make sure it's straight. I also like to do white heat embossing on dark envelopes because it stands out even better. It's something unique. And I really like shimmer envelopes. I will link to the ones that I like from Gina K Designs and Simon Says Stamp. Now I do like to use washi tape to tape my T-ruler so it's a guide that I can use to be straight as I do all my stamping. Now I am stamping the name Christina Werner here with Versamark ink. Every time I am looking through the stamp to make sure that I'm overlapping with the image I've already stamped. It doesn't have to be perfect. You could always kind of draw the line to connect it if you don't actually touch the two images, but I promise these stamps are very forgiving. You'll notice that I'm not even having to look from above. My head's not getting in the way of the camera, and I'm able to do this with no problem. Now I did set a timer, and I ended up stamping and heat embossing the front of this entire envelope in about 7 minutes. And if you ask me, if I put a couple hours into a card, 7 minutes for the envelope or the wrapping is definitely worth it. Okay, now for the address, I'm doing the same thing where I get all the letters ready on my acrylic block so they're ready to go. And now I'm stamping it with the block lettering, just the address itself. I think this kind of looks nice to have the calligraphy for the name and then the block lettering for the address. Now for these, you could mount several of them together and stamp them all at once. However, again, I think it's best to stamp each letter individually. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I do find that gives the best results. Now notice here the 0 and the zip code is kind of offline. It didn't do a good job with that. So I'm scraping away the embossing powder before I heat set it. Then I'm going to heat set it, use my anti-static powder tool again, and try again to get that 0 lined up better. That's one of the nice things about doing the stamping with the embossing powder, is that you can scrape it away if you don't get it right before you heat set it. Now again, I don't think these letters need to be perfect. If you want to make it easier, you can make the letters kind of scattered so they're not perfectly lined up, and that makes it more forgiving. But I really don't think it needs to be perfect, and look how great that is. They're not lined up wonderfully, but I think that Christina will like this. She's got beautiful handwriting, I don't, so I need to cheat and use these stamps. I also stamped special delivery on the back flap, and this envelope is ready to go. You could do some other fun things, like here I'm doing my stamping with black VersaFine ink and then adding a glitter black embossing powder. And that really makes it special. That's not something I could do with a pen, so I really like being able to do this. So my tips for stamping with these alphabet sets is to save time by getting all your letters out and ready to stamp all at once. Make sure you're overlapping them. Stamp them closer together than you think you need to. Do a little bit of practice and have a little bit of patience. It doesn't take that long to do. It's definitely worth it. I hope you'll give it a try. If you're interested in the products I talk about, they're linked below in my YouTube description. In the middle are 2 other videos that might be helpful. The first one is information about the card or the envelopes that I like to use and how I go about organizing my mailing system. And the second one shows larger calligraphy letters from Concord and Ninth. That's interesting also. So be sure to check that out. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll come back soon and have an incredible week.